do it. They're going to have to override. I just suggest to you that in the scenario that I just pointed out, promising to do those two things, spending will be less than any other scenario that could possibly be presented.
But again, they won't even let you in. What did you say? Of 16 debates, you've been excluded from 14?
That's correct, and that has a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, when you're out on the stump, if you will, the stump is different if you're not even a candidate, and by not even a candidate, I'm afraid that if you're not on stage, for most people, that qualifies you as not being a candidate. And when you're given a survey, whether that's online or mailed to you over the telephone, and your name's not on that survey, that even makes it more difficult to. There's no qualifying. I qualified for the CNBC debate 3 weeks ago. They had two criteria. One was 3% in any national poll. The other was be a registered candidate for president. Well, I was at 3% in a CNN poll.
Sure, and Newt Gingrich was at 3% a month ago. Now he's the front runner. And, I mean, stay there. We'll be right back. Final segment.
When the going gets tough, the tough gear up.
Okay, this is breaking news, and I'm glad we've got former New Mexico governor and presidential candidate Gary Johnson on with us. Obama lawyers, citizens targeted if at war with the U.S., and of all people, Dianne Feinstein is trying to offer an amendment saying you can't arrest citizens in the U.S., but you can't have troops on the streets. Now, and the Obama lawyers have come out and said, no, if U.S. citizens are at war with the U.S. military, they can kill you anywhere. Well, under common law, anybody attacks military, citizen, whatever, you've got a right to defend yourself. I mean, they keep saying, let our military fight al-Qaeda that's American. They've been killing them. They lie to the public about all of this. They're talking about getting rid of posse comitatus, using full military on the streets, which the Pentagon was given orders years ago to get ready for, Army times, you name it. And now they're just out in the open. Gary Johnson, what do you make of all of this? Because the president's saying, I don't need Congress to pass a law to give me this authority, so I'm going to veto it. He's not saying he's going to veto this declaration of war against the American people because he doesn't like it. He says he already has that power, Gary. What would you do as president with this type of garbage?
Well, it's also, I mean, this is the breaking news of the moment, but if we go back, I don't know, 2 months ago, when Holder issued a letter saying he was going to crack down on medical marijuana facilities in California, when Obama had earlier said that the last thing he was going to use federal resources for was to come in and counteract something that state citizens had voted on, whether it was their legislature or whether it was them as citizens. And in this case, we're talking about medical marijuana in California. So it's, as you alluded to earlier, talking with you here, it's just one thing after another, and it's all about more government, not less government. And we're broke. I think the biggest threat to our national security is the fact that we're borrowing or printing money to the tune of 43 cents out of every dollar that we're currently spending. You're
right, Governor. But in closing, look at Europe. You know, I'm sure you're a financial guy. You read the news. It says Goldman Sachs dictatorship. You know, all power in European nations transferred to banking system. So, in a way, these guys want to be the last people standing. They like it that we're going bankrupt. They want to wreck things. I mean, that's the only thing you can come away with, because the very culprits then pose as the saviors, the crony capitalists who are the opposite of free.
Yeah, the root of all evil is the fact that it is crony capitalism. It's not free markets. It's crony capitalism. The system's up for sale, and people pay for it. And politicians pass the special favors, if you will, and rather than the notion that this country is free and that we can all partake equally in the opportunities that it presents, it's not. It's a stacked deck.
And then the very crony capitalists through MSNBC and CNN demonize the free market and say, well, what we need is more socialism, because they know they can go in and lobby and get that socialist money they take from you and I. We've got to get that message out. And Governor, I just want to thank you for running, because you are injecting real issues and a perspective that the establishment doesn't like, and that's why they're trying to preclude you, but you are getting the message out to a lot of people, and so I appreciate you running for president, so that at least if you didn't run, we wouldn't know they were rigging debates. I mean, you've got to probe this corruption to be able to expose it.
Well, and a big, same to you, Alex. You keep talking about it. Your numbers, there are more people listening, not less people, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Governor. We know things aren't going to get better if we don't engage these people. Resistance is victory. GaryJohnson2012.com. Thank you, Gov.
All right, thanks, Alex. Bye.
All right, there he goes. Hopefully get an update from him on the campaign trail. Yeah, they're definitely scared of his decriminalization thing, because that's how they sell modern slavery. They bring it in, they catch you on it, they put you in the prison, owned by big banks that launder the drug money. Stay with us. Your calls are straight ahead. 800-25. All right, here's the deal. I've got news here where new study shows U.S. government fails to oversee treatment of foster children with mind-altering drugs. Fails to oversee it. They order it. New Freedom Initiative wants half the kids in America on drugs. Over 2/3 of foster children are put on psychotropics. We're going to break this down. It ties in with the radiation from Wi-Fi connections can reduce sperm activity. I mentioned this yesterday, but I want to tie it in with all of this and more. We got Max Kaiser coming on in 30 minutes. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. I'm going to get into this drugging of the kids with Kaiser, so I'm just going to take a bunch of calls and watch how many I take in the next 30 minutes. I'm going to turbocharge through your calls. That probably means one or two at least. Now, I'm going to take a bunch of your calls, about 30, 45 seconds a person, because I want to get to the next person. 800-259-9231. 800-259-9231. I want to take your calls on any of the issues we've mentioned or anything you want to bring up. Let's take a bunch of them right now. Angie in North Carolina, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, Alex. I'm really glad that you're giving so much exposure to this horrific National Defense Authorization Act. But there's an aspect of it that I don't think people are really thinking about. And you're right when you say that they've already basically had the ability to do this to citizens since the Bush administration, Military Commissions Act and the Patriot Act. I don't think people realize, though, that this is more or less designed, it's targeted towards doing away with state sovereignty, because the military is a federal entity. So I think this is geared more towards, the sheriffs that are beginning to rise up and realize that there's so much federal intrusion going on, or even local representatives that won't go along with this kind of thing in their district.
In fact, we need to do a report on the John Warner Defense Authorization Act of 07. It talks about the states and governors that are in insurrection and the citizens. No, this is the corporate global takeover, just like in Europe. They're saying the EU megabanks will now run your country. Your government has no sovereignty. You can never leave this. Of course you can leave it. They're just telling you, you're slaves now. Thank God we're here to rob you.
Exactly. And I think that I really don't know what to do at this point. I'm concerned about, our future. I'm concerned about the future of my children. How do you fight this big of a beast?
Well, I just wish, I hear you, I wish the average police, and they've all been put through anti-terror training, could ask themselves, why were you being told all these years domestic terrorists, anti-New World Order people were going to be attacking you? Did you ever wonder what you're going to be ordered to do that will make people be forced to fight you? I mean, it's so clear they've been indoctrinated by an evil force that's taken over the country. I mean, it's so incredibly transparent what's going on here.
So if this ends up, the worst case scenario, if it goes through and effectively neuters state sovereignty, then, what's the recourse of sheriffs or state representatives that don't want military marching into their state to, round up protesters or what have you? What would the state be able to do then?
Well, it is classical, no way to deny what it is. I mean, it's like a yellow dog comes walking down your street, it's a yellow dog. You walk by a lake and there's a duck quacking, swimming around, it's a duck. You're out in Montana and a wolf runs up, it's a wolf. You see a 57 red Chevy drive by, it's a 57 red Chevy. I mean, this is bona fide, dyed-in-the-wool, corrupt, out of control, criminal government caught committing every crime you can imagine, run by totally corrupt interests and it's an oligarchy, so it's a whole system, so they all feel safe. It's not like there's a Stalin or a Hitler you can, get out of the way. It's just a whole sickening, corrupt system. Thank you, Angie. All right, I'm going to move quick. She was a great caller, gave her 3 minutes. So it's hard to get to your calls because these are great calls. But make it quick, get ready, start your engines. Gary, Pat, Ronnie, Chris, Bill, others. 800-259-9231. Stay with us. There are a lot of people out there that know that the government and major corporations are corrupt on average and completely out of control. But they don't see themselves as leaders. They don't see themselves as ever challenging. And that's because the Hollywood archetype has been projected into the public consciousness that Conan the Barbarian or Sylvester Stallone or whoever the hero is has to go out and defeat the enemy single-handed. That's not how the world works. You can have a martyr or a banner or an idea that does empower people, and you can have individuals that do focus and do incredible things who then become a larger focus for others. But any real resistance to tyranny and any true great work is done by many people working together. And you don't have to wait for orders from headquarters. In fact, there is no headquarters. It's an idea of freedom. It's a spirit of liberty, the spirit of 1776 versus the mindset of 1984. And we're here. And I keep saying we're at the crossroads. We're always at a crossroads. But this is a critical juncture when we could still slow down their program and then later turn it back. But soon we will go down into even deeper areas, and more people will then wake up. Still others will get scared and actually join with evil. A lot of folks see corruption coming, they go and grovel to it. We don't need them. That always happens. We need people who are good and decent and honorable, who have been in denial or been too busy to focus, to really discover history, discover our current circumstances, and take action. Max Kaiser's coming up on the accelerating implosion by design of the euro. I'd like him to join us at least once a week to give us an update. I want to go to your phone calls, though, right now very quickly. We just had former New Mexico Governor Gary Johnson on from New Mexico. Here's another Gary from New Mexico. Gary in New Mexico, you're on the air.
Hey, Alex, Prisonplanet subscriber, money bomb donator, disabled veteran. Just to be very quick, our recent family Thanksgiving was over 30 people of all backgrounds, to include ex-military like myself, cops, and what we did was we watched the entire Rise of Female Police State 4. And once we finished that, we watched the Jesse Ventura confront Steve Cohen on HR 645 on YouTube. And then I also provided everybody with a copy of the Rise of FEMA, the bill HR 645, and a pocket constitution. If they had any...
Obama lawyers, citizens targeted, if at war with the U.S. And of all people, Dianne Feinstein is trying to offer an amendment saying you can't arrest citizens in the U.S., but you can't have troops on the streets. Now, and the Obama lawyers have come out and said, no, if U.S. citizens are at war with the U.S. military, they can kill you anywhere. Well, under common law...
Different if you're not even a candidate, and by not even a candidate, I'm afraid that if you're not on stage, for most people, that qualifies you as not being a candidate. And when you're given a survey, whether that's online or mailed to you over the telephone, and your name's not on that survey, that even makes it more difficult to. There's no qualifying. I qualified for the CNBC debate 3 weeks ago. They had two criteria. One was 3% in any national poll. The other was be a registered candidate for president. While I was at 3% in a CNN poll.
Sure, and Newt Gingrich was at 3% a month ago. Now he's the front runner. And, I mean, stay there. We'll be right back. Final
When
segment.
the going gets tough, the tough gear up.
Okay, this is breaking news, and I'm glad we've got former New Mexico governor and presidential candidate Gary Johnson on with us.
They're going to have to override. I just suggest to you that in the scenario that I just pointed out, promising to do those two things, spending will be less than any other scenario that could possibly be presented.
But again, they won't even let you in. What did you say? Of 16 debates, you've been excluded from 14?
That's correct, and that has a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, when you're out on the stump, if you will. The stump is
anybody attacks military, citizen, whatever. You've got a right to defend yourself. I mean, they keep saying, "Let our military fight Al Qaeda that's American." They've been killing them. They lie to the public about all of this. They're talking about getting rid of posse comitatus, using full military on the streets, which the Pentagon was given orders years ago to get ready for, Army times, you name it. And now they're just out in the open.